Hello everyone, good morning. This is my daily course that I do and share with you. It's called Viral Wisdom. It's about taking the wisdom from our present moment and seeing how we can learn life lessons that can help us. You know, if we don't get the teachings of any given moment, we miss the teachings of the given moment. So it is with this virus. As painful as it is, as torturous, treacherous, grieving as it is, it also has lessons for us. And it has lessons for us individually and globally. And this time, the lessons are pretty much across the board. Of course, each family deals with the lessons and gets hit in a very unique way. But there are real trends here that we can awaken to as a globe, as a humanity, if we choose to. But more importantly, for us as individuals who wish to awaken, there are a lot of lessons here. So my course is called Viral Wisdom. Hello, everyone. Tell me where you're signing in from. So when you see me do this Facebook, it's because I'm looking at my Instagram people. And when I'm doing this Instagram people, it's because I'm looking at my Facebook. So I'm going to do back and forth because I don't know how to set the camera right next to each other. I'm not so sophisticated. Hello, everyone. Tell me where you're saying hello from. Ahmad is from Dubai. CMK is from Ontario, Canada. From Malta, Montana. From all over the world. So happy to be with you today. And today I'm a little fired up, so I'm going to try to be gentle and appropriate and not offend too many people. But it's quite likely today, 100%, one or two people will feel offended. So just know I have now given you a disclaimer and a warning to please to disconnect from the page if you're in a particularly sensitive mood, because I'm in a particularly I don't even have the words. So let me tell you why. Currently in America, in some states, some governors wish to open the state, like tomorrow. Even though our numbers haven't gone down or flatlined, and I'm in New York, so they're particularly high in New York, but in other states they haven't even peaked to flatline. They're still rising, but those governors have chosen to open their states. So I have an unspeakable reaction that is leaving me speechless. I do not even have words to say. But what I'm going to do here is try not to be attacking, but instead take the lesson, right? So in my life, and what I try to teach is what is the damn lesson for me? How can I take this lesson so I can evolve? So one part of me, and this is how we are in every crisis or every situation, one part is our ego, is our instinct, is our primal rage and reaction to protect. So that part may come out, okay? I'm so sorry. I mean, it may sneak out. I have been taming it all day, but who knows? It can sneak out. That part may trigger your ego, and we could be battling, but please don't write to me because I already know it's my ego. So when you are feeling reactive, know it's your ego, and then go write about it in your journal because I already know it's my ego. I don't need to be told. So let me explain. In any crisis situation, so I'm taking the lesson now, right? In any crisis situation, the reason it's a crisis is because it's a shock. It's an apocalyptic shock, right? And the shock could be in different things. First, it could be about your body, that your body is in a state of, shock because you've just been told you have cancer. So now your mind is in shock, your body's in shock. The shock could come from an external person. You find out your husband cheats on you. You find out your wife is an alcoholic and a drug addict and you had no idea. You find out your daughter's a prostitute, right? Just to put it mildly, you're shocked. So shocks could come from other people's behaviors that you didn't realize, right? You're like, oh my goodness, where have I been living? I'm in shock. Or shocks could come like the virus, right? Something global, pandemic, viral related. It's a shock. Then the shock could come from our leadership, like we are being shocked. Shocked that our leadership is acting the way it is. So shock occurs in a crisis. Our instinct is ego. ego, our instinct is to react, right? So, for example, my ego is on full blast and I'm watching it. Most people don't watch the ego. Most people just flow with the ego. The ego flows with them and they react. So, what happens is that our ego gets inflared. So, for example, right now, I have a huge reaction to all the governors who wish to open their damn states. I also have a huge reaction to the top governor, which is our president, because if it wasn't for our president, the trickle down would not occur. Now, some of you will say, I'm being political. I will say back to you, this is not political. This is very, 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 very personal. If you come into my house and you come and stamp on my child's hand, I don't care if you're the priest, I don't care if you're the president, it's not religious, it's not political, it's personal. So this is entering my house now, and you're affecting my children, my neighbors, my loved ones by your leadership or lack of leadership. That is the truth. But my reaction is the problem. My reaction is the ego. And my ego wants to take the protesters who are saying they want to come and be, in the face of COVID, and COVID is a lie, and COVID is a myth, and COVID is a conspiracy, and they want to open up the states. My ego wants to do something to them. Okay? Now that's the problem. I'll tell you why. Because the one who you were reacting against in ego is already in damn ego. So then it's two people's egos fighting against each other. So after years of having done this, I've had to now surrender my ego, even though it's still there, but I watch it. I don't engage with the ego, because the ego is simply a reaction to another blind fool's reaction. So then we're two blind fools reacting to each other, because the one who I'm reacting against is obviously a blind fool. So if I react to the blind fool, that makes me a blind fool. So two of us, blind and foolish together, what good does that do? And most of our individual fights in our lives are blind fool to blind fool, yes? One thinks they're smarter than the other. But both are blind and foolish because each one thinks they're smarter than the other. And they're fighting and quipping with the other, I'm smarter, no, I'm smarter, no, I'm smarter. And they sound like two siblings, which is most couples, fighting with each other, right? So, although I know I'm right in this case, I'm right, and they're wrong. If I react blindly, and now I'm spewing hatred and violence just like they are, now I am acting at the same vibrational frequency as them. And some wise person, Mahatma Gandhi, Einstein, or Martin Luther King, somebody said, you cannot change the problem at the level of the problem, right? If you act the same way as the problem, you have to change your frequency. So in order to do that, we have to now watch our own ego, our own desire to punch back, react, call them bloody morons. All day I've been calling them bloody morons. All day I've been saying, oh, they should have a stamp on their wrist saying that they are protesters, meaning they don't believe COVID is true. So then they shouldn't go to the hospital. If they don't believe it's true, don't go to the hospital. So I've been saying all these things in my head because my ego is inflared, right? Part of it is correct. Part of it, I'm talking to myself like a mad woman and getting my blood pressure up like a mad person, because what is the point? So now, what do we do when we have these reactions in our lives, right? We have to ask ourselves, how can I learn from this for my evolution? Simply reacting in ego is not going to do any good. It's like you and I gossiping, we can do that all day, about how damn dumb these people are and how ridiculous the presidency is. No, really. Republican or Democratic, you got to agree with me that this is really, really, really evil and ignorant and selfish and capitalist. I don't care if you're Republican or Democratic. It is the truth. I know it. So what do we do with it though? It is, but now what to do with it? Here is where the power of spiritual teachings come in. Instead of simply staying in reaction and complaining, whining, bitching, moaning, protesting, we have to ask, how can I learn from this? What are my teachings that I need to grow and evolve so that tomorrow I help humanity elevate and myself elevate, right? So the first teaching that I have learned, and I'm sure you know this already, but I'm just highlighting it, is that it is the human condition to create bullshit out of bullshit, right? To put it mildly. It is the nature of us humans. This is how low we are in consciousness. That we will literally take any situation and make it dual. We will make it dual. This is our nature. As a psychologist, I learned this in my 20s, but I couldn't believe it. I was like, no. We humans are loving, we're so kind. How come we don't create beauty and prosperity in our lives? Why are we always fighting? Why are we in war? Why are we hating on each other? Surely we know that race is an illusion. Surely we know, while it's real biologically, but it's really an illusion spiritually. Surely we know religion is an illusion. Surely we know it's just, belief du jour. It's not really that you're separate from me. Surely we know this. So why is it that we're fighting in the name of God and we're fighting in the name of skin color? It took me a long time to realize, we're not that conscious. We're not even that smart. And we're certainly not that wise. And that was very painful to realize that we as a species are not that evolved. What we are instead of evolved is unevolved, asleep, unconscious. And what that means is that our tendency, leaving all things quiet, our tendency will be toward division. Our tendency will be toward creating havoc, will be towards separation. Now this profound lesson is something we need to understand, not with pessimism and a sense of apathy, but with power. With power. I'll tell you why, and the power is coming. It sounds really dismal, but there's power. So when we wake up to understand that humanity only, the humanity's needle always veers toward ego. What does that mean? Ego means creating separation. Me versus you. The level of consciousness of humanity is stuck at the level of duality. Now, don't think it's just the governor of Georgia and the president. It is also you and me. And this is where the lesson becomes very personal. So I'm going to switch between showing it on the level of the virus and then showing it on your level. It's the same lesson. And that's why every crisis, every negative turn has a lesson for you. And if you learn it, you evolve. So what we're seeing right now on the political stage in America is that this virus came along. The virus showed what every spiritual teacher wanted us to see, which is we're all connected by breath. We are nothing if not breath. We are all energy. We are all interconnected. And there's a lot that happens on the level of formlessness that we have missed because of our obsession with form. Those were the teachings. What did we end up doing? Even in a time, a brief sliver of an opportunity to unite as one, even here, the United States government has managed to create a division, to create an us versus them. Even in this, we are arguing like siblings. My chocolate, your chocolate, my bigger piece, your bigger piece, I'm this, you're that, I like blue, you like yellow. Even here, we have taken a moment to unite and crapped on it. Now, I don't say this with any lethargy, apathy, or pessimism. It just is human nature, even yours and mine. I'll tell you how it is yours and mine in a moment. So, if you can observe what's happening in the US right now, it's fascinating that the president, the government, has told people to fight the medical professionals, to deny the existence of COVID, to incite and fight for your freedoms and create and wage separation. So just today in America, now we have people against COVID or the protection and for protection, right? Right here, we have division. It is our human nature to divide. How do you and I divide on a daily basis? And this is where our lesson gets personal. Do you know how we divide on a daily basis? I do it every day. We have to live our life in boxes because life must be controlled by the human psyche. You see, we cannot just live in the neutrality of reality. We must create boxes. And in those boxes are two categories, good and bad. We must divide life into good and bad, good and bad, good and bad. Watch yourself all day long, subconsciously, especially if you have children. You're like good, bad, good, bad, good, bad, good, bad. And this is what we are seeing now in the US. We have the good guys and the bad guys, depending where you are. Good and bad. Once again, we've created Democrat and Republican. Once again, we've created good and bad. Once again, we've created rich and poor. Once again, we've created white and color. The divisions in America that have always been there showed up with the election of the president and has shown up in the virus. It just keeps bloody showing up. Why does it keep showing up? Because it never died. Our inherent split, and especially America was created on the blood of the slaves. It was created on the split of power, of slavery, of destruction, of death, of murder. It was created on blood. And when something is created in blood, meaning split from soul, ego and soul, America was created on the split and the vehemence of ego over soul. You will keep seeing these reiterations of good versus evil versus good, good versus evil, evil versus good, constantly replaying in all of life. It will not go away because the core of the core of the core has not yet been healed. And you will see this split everywhere you go. So this is not a history lesson or a social studies lesson. Do not write to me. I am not a professor. I don't know. I just know basic common sense. What I care about is how this affects you in your personal life and how you do this to your children and to yourself. All day long, you create division. Good, bad, bad, good, good, bad, bad, good. You have money, it's good. You don't have money, it's bad. You're thinner, you're good. You're fatter, you're bad. Non-bloody stop. Good, bad, bad, good. And here is the truth, which the government and the governors could not tolerate, and we cannot tolerate, is that there is no good, there is no bad. It just is. There are some facts, some data that reality tells us clearly. So in this case of the virus, there are medical facts, medical effects. You can choose to ignore it and create a story. That's your choice. But they just are facts. They're not good. They're not bad. They just are. We create good and bad out of everything. If your kid gets a C grade, you've decided it's bad. It could be the turning point for their next A++. But you don't know that. If you see yourself as good and bad constantly, what you do is you tether yourself to judgment. And when you tether yourself to judgment, you tether yourself to culture. Because all judgment at the end of the day is a cultural story. It's not real. You can decide I'm good. Part of it is your personal choice. Part of it is culture's choice. You may decide somebody's smart, somebody's pretty, somebody's worthy. Part of your opinion will be tainted by culture. Most judgments are belief systems. Most belief systems are cultural. They are not authentic. So all judgments of good and bad have come not from you, from culture. And all day long we categorize life because we haven't learned that life just is. So I've done a talk at Mind Valley called, I don't know what it's called, but it's something about good and bad. One of my people will post it on Facebook, and you should hear that talk because in that talk I explain that this idea of good is an illusion. The idea of bad is an illusion. Everything is relative. Everything is in the moment. Everything is in context. So even the protesters, they are very bad in my egoic eyesight, very evil, and I'm pissed. But I know that calling them bad is not the answer because they are good in a way. You know how they're good? Because they're waking the rest of us up. They're waking the rest of us up. When Trump got elected, I'm sorry, I was a little bit devastated. And I was going to talk the moment he got elected, yes, I was going to give a talk on a boat, on a ship that was going to set sail for like 14 days, I don't know how many days, and I was their inaugural speaker to set the ship off. I literally left my hotel room having heard that he got elected. And then I was supposed to go on the ship to cheer them, and we thought it would be Hillary and all these pro-Democrats, and we were going to set the ship off. Now it's Trump, and whatever you may say, evidence now shows that he's not the most conscious. So I was aware that he's not the most conscious. Do not run after me. It just is the truth. So I had to go do this talk, and the organizers called me and they were like, "What are you going to talk about?" I said, "I don't know." I said, "I told you, don't book me for this inaugural speech because I told you back then, how do you know Hillary will win?" And you were like, "Oh, she's got to win." And so I based my whole speech on the women's empowerment and women, and now we got Trump. So now what do you want me to talk about? She's like, "I don't know, but people are throwing themselves off the boat. So you better come up with something." And I was like, "I can't come up with anything. You don't pay me enough to come up with something around this. I just cannot. And I'm not saying Hillary is good. I did not say Hillary is good. Listen to my speech. It's nothing is good or bad. Wait and listen to what I'm talking about. So somebody's writing, "Well, I'm going if you think Hillary is good." There is a lesson. Hold on. So the way I talked about it that day was to understand that just like there are no good and bad children and good or bad people. Now wait, I'll talk about killers and rapists. People are like, "What about killers? What about rapists?" Can we hold on a second? I need to make my point. So, just like there are no good and bad children, I had to shift from the obvious that Trump may not be so conscious, and my ego was so angry. I had to shift from that. Because if you get stuck on the level of good and bad, then we're just angry. I had to shift from that to go, what is the lesson? What is the lesson? And the lesson is always found beyond good and bad. And I realized Trump may be bad for my ego. So bad for my ego. But the reason he is good, and because he's good, he can't really be bad. And because he's bad, he can't be good. So they're both nullified and therefore neutralized, is because, number one, Trump, for example, did not just come to be. He came to be through inextricable cause and effect. And I and you are part of the cause and effect. Whether I like the effect at this moment or not, I am part of the cause and effect. In all the ways I have been unconscious, I am part of the cause and effect. In all the ways I didn't speak up, didn't stand up, didn't rally enough, I am part of the cause and effect, number one. Number two, this could be the turning point for a new awakening. If it is the turning point for a new awakening, how can it be bad? Then it's the best thing that happened. Just like I'm trying to teach that this virus, although on the level of the physical ego is heartbreaking, heart-wrenching, difficult, so tormenting, on the spiritual level, it is a huge teacher. So it is with the election of someone like Trump. On the spiritual level, this is a teacher. Everything is a teacher. And once I got into that frame of mind, I could go give the speech, and I set people off in the right way. I said, no. There is no good and bad. Hillary wasn't necessarily good. Trump is not necessarily bad. Each one comes with their own cause and effects. It's up to us to see beyond the good and the bad and go, what is the spiritual lesson? And the spiritual lesson is that everything is good if it wakes us up. Everything is bad if it keeps us dormant. So now we get to decide if something is good or bad. Inherently, nothing is. Now you'll ask me, but what about a rapist, a pedophile? Of course, on the level of that, of course it's bad. If you see somebody raping someone else, stop it. Don't go, it's not good or bad. No, in the physical, we do what's physically required. Just like this virus is asking us to do. Physically, be at home. Physically, be quiet. Distance. Right? We're doing physically. On the physical, we do it. But on the spiritual is where the greater lessons are learned. And the lesson here in this moment that I'm highlighting is that as much as there's so much bad happening in terms of people's ignorance and people's competition and selfishness, what it's teaching me is that somebody's writing about Hillary. The point is not about Hillary, my love. It's not about Trump or Hillary. It's going beyond it. Like Rumi said, beyond the field of right and wrong is a space. Meet me there. That's where I'm trying to take us. That this good and bad that we do is our ignorance. And this, what is happening right now with the protests in America, where we have once again created division of good and bad, where there are protesters and then protesters of the protesters who will protest the protesters, and then there'll be more protesters. This instinct we have as a humanity to split, no matter what the damn problem is, even if there's no split, we will create a split. This is what I'm talking about. Our addiction to splitting, our addiction to looking for good and bad. We do this all our lives. We look in the mirror, we decide if we're good or bad. We look at our children, we decide if it's good or bad. But instead, if we went to the space beyond good and bad, where Rumi said to meet us, there we will find that the true way to live is to neither categorize or judge. It doesn't mean don't take action. Shout out at the rapist, lock the rapist, leave the abusive husband, take care of your wound, yes, on the physical. But on the spiritual, the only way to live life is to understand that it just is. It just is. Now I'll tell you why. When we go beyond good and bad, it doesn't mean though we don't take action, but we go beyond the ego. So when we take action, it's not a reaction, because then we are at the vibrational level of those who we are protesting against. We're at their level. So we take action, but we take inspired action. We take conscious action, right? So if today I was just to come out and say, I hate Trump, I hate Trump, I hate Trump, I am no different than those who I'm protesting against. And I would be as ignorant as them. Therefore, I'm not doing that. I'm saying my ego wants to do it, but I'm not doing it. That's my ego. I know it's my ego. I'm not going to do it. I am going to ask myself, what is the universal lesson here? What is the trap? And how can I take inspired action and education out of this? What can I learn from this? And I can learn is that people will be people. This is the nature of people. It is the nature of people to split. It is the nature of people to invest in good and bad. But I am not going to do it. I am not going to go into good and bad. I'm not doing it. I'm not playing the game. I am going to go to the space beyond good and bad where I just accept it is. Having said that, I can open my mouth as I'm doing right now. But I do it with love. I do it with humor. I do it with compassion. I do it having thought through what the issue is. The issue isn't Trump. The issue isn't the protester. The issue is a ubiquitous global issue. And I'll show you how it shows up in everybody's life. It's your issue and my issue. Every time you tell your kid they're good, you have been sucked into the same dilemma as the protesters who are trying to be good, trying to be right. Every time you want to own and possess and control your friend or your spouse because you're so right, you're playing the same game. You're right. At an egoic level of the individual, you are with the same attitude as the protesters you think are so ignorant on the outside level. Every time you embrace your life situation as, oh, it's bad. How could this happen to me? And you enter resistance because you believe something is bad. You are with the same indignation as the protesters who believe the others are bad. The attitude of this is bad, this is good, this is bad, this is good, and the constant labeling that we do and then the actions we take come from ignorance. Come from ignorance. Instead, we need to understand it just is. It doesn't feel good. It doesn't taste good. It doesn't feel good in our heart. We cry. Sure. But this doesn't mean we know its inherent value, because reality is just what it is. So yes, there will always be the human who acts inhumane. There will always be the human who is completely more ignorant than the chimpanzee. There will always be the human who is absolutely insane. This is reality. It just is. So when you are confronted with something that is inane or insane or really ignorant, it's up to you. You can fight it and fight it and fight it and fight it. You're bad, you're bad, you're bad, you're bad. Or you can ask yourself, how else can I respond in this moment? And this is for you in your personal life as well. Right? You can yell at your kid all you like. I have a 17-year-old. She currently sleeps no earlier, I'm really embarrassed to say, than 3 or 4 or 5 in the morning. And I have no control. She's 17. I literally have no control. I reach her chest. Okay, I'm scared of the child. So all day I can say she's bad, she's bad, she's bad. Or I can say, maybe, I don't know if this is so bad. Maybe this is her clock at this present moment. All her friends are awake. Maybe there's another way to look at this. And unless we enter understanding and compassion and empathy, we will not create a bridge. So let's go back to these protesters where it's hard to create a bridge because they're putting our lives at risk, correct? So how do we create empathy for somebody we think is evil? The way to create empathy is to understand that they or the alcoholic or the drug addict or the X or Y are at an extremely primitive level of consciousness. I'm sorry, they are at an extremely primitive level of consciousness. Unfortunately, they could be the mass mainstream. It is what it is. Now, when you understand that, then you can understand that they are bound by a very primitive conditioning. You know, when there were bomb blasts in Mumbai, many of you may remember, in Bombay, Mumbai, in India, there were bomb blasts in the hotel, in the Taj. And it was devastating for me because I took it very personally because I was born and brought up in Mumbai. And I remember thinking to myself, evil, 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 bad people, bad people, bad people, so bad, so bad, so evil. One day, maybe a year later, I saw a documentary by Fareed Zakaria, and they were interviewing one of the bad, evil terrorists. And I saw it. And I was all ready to not like him, all ready to be upset. And what I saw instead, because I thought it would be some evil thug who was just spewing violence and hatred, what I saw was a soulless body. What I saw was a child, infantile, tortured, primitive, uneducated, unaware, a puppet, a minion, a slave. I did not see any evil person. I saw a soulless body. And when I understood, oh, I've been beating against the afflicted. He is just afflicted. He is diseased in the mind. Oh, I should not fight the diseased. If anything, I need to be upset with the disease itself, not the diseased. I need to be upset, if at all, with the affliction, not the afflicted. So I did a talk on this as well. It's on my website. You can watch it. It was a talk I did at Agape Spiritual Center on the difference between the afflicted and the affliction. And so when I realize that, then I can look at the protesters. And yes, it pisses my ego off. But I have the wisdom to go beyond just hating them. Wisdom to go beyond just being angry at them. To go, okay, what do I need to understand? I need to understand that as a human on this planet, I am going to be surrounded by other humans who are at different levels of consciousness. Everyone cannot be at the same level of consciousness, and certainly not mine. Who am I to say what level of consciousness should they be at? So when I understand that, then I can go even beyond and I can understand their affliction. And I begin to understand that they are deeply delusional, deeply afflicted. They truly believe white people are better than brown people. They truly believe their religion is better than mine. Or I don't have one, but then the others. They truly believe that their children are more worthy. They truly believe that they're better than the virus. They are delusional. They're mentally afflicted. How can you be upset with someone who's mentally afflicted? Now you have a few choices. You can seek to change them, but you can't change somebody who's mentally afflicted. All of us have somebody mentally afflicted in our personal lives. You've tried to change them, they don't change. So try to change them, you can't change them. You can leave them, so don't put on the TV, don't go to Georgia, don't go to those states. Okay, you can leave the country, go to Canada. You can accept. Now, acceptance sounds passive. It sounds like you're just giving in. No, I'm talking about active acceptance. Active acceptance is you speak, but you speak with beauty, with compassion, with understanding. I see you're afflicted. And then you know what you do with the acceptance? You look at your own life and you ask yourself, how do I promote duality in my life? How many times have I created separation in my life? How many times have I thought my God is better than your God? How many times have I thought that my skin color is better than your skin color? How many times have I thought I'm superior? You take those lessons and you put them into your own life and you ask yourself, how many times have I categorized my child as bad or good? How many times have I not understood the affliction and have blamed the afflicted? How many times have I not understood my own afflictions and blamed myself? Right? This is how you take the teachings and you make it personal. And you release your egoic idea that you are better than anyone else. I wrote an article for the Huffington Post called Your Inner Jihad, Your Inner Jihadist, Fighting Your Own Inner Jihad. Of course, they did not accept the article because no one wants to see the truth. That they themselves hold the seeds for everything evil on the outside. We have the same seeds. We just have been blessed that those seeds haven't been watered. But had we grown up in that person's house, with that person's parents, with that person's level of awareness, we would be the same. So when we have empathy, it doesn't mean we're giving in. It's now we can perhaps understand the affliction and perhaps educate and create change. Simply hating is going to perpetuate the good and bad, good and bad. And that's why our politics in America especially looks the way it does. Republican, Democratic, Republican, Democrat, it's so stupid. It's like two children fighting for chocolate. That's what we're doing, back and forth with it. You take it, I take it. I want more, you want more. It is at that primitive level. And so it is today. Of course we have protesters. How could we not? Right? Part of me is so ignorant to be surprised. Right? But I can't help it. I mean, I still get surprised. How stupid am I? Don't I understand human psyche? Human psyche will create crap out of anything. Give it sand, crap. Chocolate cake, crap. Beautiful scenery, crap. We are masters at creating crap. Right? We're crap creators. Because it is our instinct to have an ego. And the ego must create separation. This is the nature of the ego. The ego categorizes good to bad. So, you have to ask yourself, how do you do this in your own life? How do you create categorizations in your own life? Can you live in the isness of the present moment? So see, those protesters, if they learned this lesson, they would be able to live in the isness of not having control over this virus. They would then be humble to go sit quietly in their home. But because they cannot tolerate having no control, they must create a righteousness within them. They must call the virus ignorant and evil. The virus is wrong, we are right, and they must create division. You see, had they learned what I'm trying to teach you, they would have just gone, it is what it is. I'm going to tolerate the confusion and the fear that it is what it is brings about and go back into my home. But because I don't know how to do this, it brings up too much fear in me. It brings up too much pain in me. I must go protest. I must go protest. Even if I die, I must protest. Look at the ego. The ego is willing to kill the physical because the ego needs to live in superiority. All that we are seeing in what we're seeing in the US is ego. Ego, ego, ego. At the face of the isness. It's a battle between the isness and ego. And we're seeing it beautifully through the president all the way to his minions. Sorry, it is the president. If the captain of the ship, if the parent of the house doesn't talk nonsense, quite likely the children won't talk too much nonsense. This ignorance is coming down, right? But it's okay. It's not bad or good. It just is human nature. Human nature is terribly afflicted. And it is our job, those who have seen some light, we're not that smart, but a little bit, it is our job with love, with compassion, with understanding, to educate, to spread the light of wisdom. So that's what I'm doing, and I ask you to do it. And after I've talked to you with beauty, I'll just go have a drink because my ego will be roaring and I'll be so mad. I'm just kidding. So this is how you break it down. You do it in your personal life, you do it in the political, and you realize that this whole idea of good and bad is an illusion, it's ignorance. But don't fall into the trap and you start the good and bad scenario in your life. You don't create a good and bad war in your life. This is a profound lesson. There is no good and bad. It just is. It is human nature to create good and bad. Don't fall for it. Don't fall for it. It's an illusion. Bye, everyone. Thank you for joining me. I'll be back here tomorrow. This was a big lesson. Not easy to hear. I get it.